This is your daily dose of all things royal.
Here it is. What do you know?
Well, this individual appears to be from Washington State. It appears that he immigrated here into the United States in 2021 as part of the operation to bring Afghanis who had worked with or assisted the United States government over into this country as Afghanistan was beginning to fall.
The Special Immigrant Visa Program, SIV program.
Right, exactly. This was the Allies Welcome Program. He applied for asylum under that program and was granted that asylum in April of this year, although he's been here, it appears, since 2021. So that sets this in a place where the FBI is going to be looking at what was the vetting that was done prior to his arrival here, when he settled in Washington, what has been his activities here in the United States, what brought him to Washington, how long has he been there. But it's going to give them a better direction at this point as they try to get from who is this individual, which they believe they've established, to what is his motive. Now, a number of motives could come up there. One could be that he was disenchanted in the United States. Another could be that he was angry at the U.S. military or felt betrayed and came upon people in uniform when he traveled to Washington. Or it could be something altogether different.
In other words,
The Biden State Department program launched in Q4 2021, dangling billions, and the fiscal sponsor was Rockefeller Philanthropy Advisors. And that's going to be important to know later on because they are the fiscal sponsor for the Welcome U.S. coalition that's in partnership with the U.S. government. So hold that thought and shift our attention for a minute. Now let's talk about the woman nobody was supposed to notice and forget about when she left. And that would be Mandana Dayani. Raise your hand if that name still rings a bell. For 18 months, the Sussex PR machine paraded her as the grown-up in the room. Chief Operating Officer of Archwell, the one supposedly running day-to-day operations for both the for-profit media arm and the all-important Archwell Fugazi Public Charity. You know, their fraudulent 501c3 tax-exempt organization. Here's the part everyone conveniently missed. When the IRS filings finally happened, Mandana Dayani was nowhere to be found on the charity's list of officers, directors, or key employees. 0 hours reported, 0 compensation listed, nothing for any of the years that Archwell had filed. So who was she actually working for? Because if Mandana Dayani was never actually on the payroll of the philanthropic Archwell Show Up and Do Good Foundation, the one that's been suspiciously cagey about exactly where its millions come from and where they go, then what the hell was she doing there? We're left to connect the dots ourselves until the IRS finally does its job. And those dots are starting to form a huge neon sign. This is the same Mandana Dayani who co-founded I Am Voter, a get-out-the-vote machine that funneled bodies to the polls for Biden in 2020 and Kamala in 2024. This is the same Mandana who magically materialized at Archwell Fugazi Public Charity the instant Biden's people started spraying $10.7 billion in taxpayer money across public-private partnerships for Operations Allies Welcome. And then there's the smoking gun nobody in the media wants to touch. Mandana Dayani sat on the Leadership Council of Welcome.us, the same exact refugee resettlement slush fund launched in September 2021 by the unholy quartet of former presidents, Marxist puppet Obama, treason-adjacent Clinton, warmonger Bush, and Jimmy, not the worst anymore, Carter. This wasn't some feel-good charity drive. Welcome.us was the front door for Biden's multi-billion-dollar Afghan and Ukrainian resettlement bonanza. Billions in taxpayer cash handed straight to NGOs with zero oversight, zero vetting, and zero questions asked. And who do you think helped with the laundry and funneling of that cash? Well, none other than Archwell's COO, right alongside Soros-linked operatives. I mean, technically, her title at Archwell was head of operations, so I guess she was doing her job. And the way I see it, and this is my opinion on what really went down here, is while Harry and Meghan were cosplaying humanitarians and begging the world for compassion to show up and do good, their handpicked operative, Mandana Dayani, was sitting on the Welcome.us Leadership Council, quietly having a say which NGOs and Archwell got first dibs on that multi-billion-dollar geyser of taxpayer cash. What's really interesting to me here is that Harry and Meghan set up this welcome project in 2023. But this evacuation of these Afghans happened at the end of 2021, and the resettlement actually went on into 2022. So if Archwell was mobilizing, why did they wait till 2023 to set up this welcome project? Well, could be that after Operation Welcome Allies was over, they needed the next grift to continue to keep the funds coming in, which naturally, with all of these illegal invaders coming in, Welcome.us became not just for Afghans anymore, it's for newcomers. That's what they're calling them, the newcomers. And in my opinion, Archwell wasn't just a grateful indirect recipient. It was literally acting as a toll booth. Every glossy photo shoot of Meghan hugging Afghan women in hijabs wasn't charity. It was marketing collateral. Those soft-focus community images of smiling Muslim refugees were deliberate propaganda, crafted to normalize the very demographic replacement the billions were bankrolling. Pure activism cosplaying with a six-figure operational overhead skimmed off the top for the Sussex's Fugazi public charity. And yes, Mandana Dayani, a Jewish Iranian American, was right there helping to steer the ship. Doesn't matter if she sees the end game, which is Islamic transformation, wealth redistribution, and open borders forever. She's just another useful idiot collecting substantial checks. The pipeline doesn't care about her feelings or beliefs. It only cares that she delivered access. So really, how much of those billions actually trickled down to affect the refugee directly? And how much actually vanished into thin air over administration fees, private jets, PR retainers, and offshore consulting gigs? You know, all those shell companies Harry and Meghan have set up have to be for a reason, right? Let's walk through what likely has gone on here, not only with Archwell Fugazi Public Charity, but for the rest of all these grifting NGOs. We're going to use Archwell as the example. This is how I suspect some of that tax money flowed into the hands of Harry and Meghan. You see, under Operation Allies Welcome, the government cut about 4 contracts. Those organizations were the International Rescue Committee, or IRC, the U.S. Committee for Refugees and Immigrants, or USCRI, the Lutheran Immigration and Refugee Service, and then you had the Jewish organization HIAS. On top of that, you had Rockefeller Philanthropy Advisors, who was the fiscal sponsor for Welcome US. Despite how it's marketed, these really weren't charities. They were passed through vaults. Each received hundreds of millions, then immediately subcontracted the real work like housing, food, cultural orientation, walks in a free park, to a daisy chain of smaller NGOs and for-profit vendors. All the while, they hype up for-profit companies for donating from their own funds, making it seem like pure-hearted generosity when we all know that cash is really flowing from another charity fund pipeline and matching grant scheme. They also gave money to the fiscal sponsor, which was Rockefeller Philanthropy Advisors. And that's how NGOs do it. They're like 3 or 4 layers separated so they can keep their hands clean. So it is possible that Harry and Meghan received an ungodly amount of money that went into one of those offshore accounts or shell companies. Then they put some of that money into DAFs, to which it was then given to Archwell to be seen as like a donation. And then Harry and Meghan issued their grants. And if you notice, those grants, they're very small in value. And the whole point to doing that is to not trigger the system with large grants in areas that you don't want to be scrutinized. Like take, for instance, the NAACP. Sure, Harry and Meghan probably make good on that $125,000 that they give every year for the digital justice. But for this little operation of giving $27,500 in those exact amounts to these various small organizations for resettlement, yeah, I think something's fishy there. And this is why we need reform on these NGOs to put more governance around it, because they've legitimately figured out how to lose the trail of money and make it so complex that you can't trace this money going back to our tax dollars. But the secret's out. In some way or some form, I am pretty sure that all this money that Harry and Meghan have been throwing at these charities came from the taxpayer. And I would be curious to know how much did they really pocket if they were receiving funds indirectly in this whole NGO network scheme, because that's how it's set up. They wouldn't be doing this if there wasn't profit in it. And while I understand that we're frustrated that Archwell needs to be investigated by the IRS and we keep telling them over and over to do it, you have to understand how large this network of NGOs are. We're talking about 1.8 million foundations and charities that have 501c3 status that's tax exempt. I really do think that they need to do a better job at selecting who gets these tax exemptions. But the fact that there's so many of them, I guarantee the IRS is pretty busy these days in trying to sort out who should be tax exempt, who is doing the right thing, and who is committing tax fraud. I mean, it's like here we see it. We see that there's something funky and fishy here, and they definitely need to be looked at. What I find truly, truly infuriating is the amount of money for decades that have been stolen from hardworking people. People in the United States, people in the UK, people in Canada and Australia and the EU, the whole entire West, and all these demons that want to enslave us have been literally redistributing all the wealth. And Ukraine is a perfect example of that. Now, I know that this video was long, but I needed to go through how we got here in order for you to understand what was stolen from us and why the people that you see on your screen were doing everything in their mother to ensure that Donald Trump did not get back into office. It's because of the money and the power and the control. You know, with all that's going on with socialism, spreading throughout the West, because that's exactly what they're driving here, I think it's only appropriate that if we're going to go down the path of socialism and eventually into communism, and it would only make sense to seize the wealth and assets of these assholes and share it among the people. I mean, it is ours anyway. The last thing that I want to say is, if you made it this far, thank you for sticking it out. I know it's not the easiest topic to listen to, but it's definitely important because this is what's happening to everybody. And this is what people like Meghan and Harry have been doing. And I get that we all love the royal family, but they're also doing it too. Sure, they have good PR and they can spin it, but they're equally in this system. And, you know, I think people need to start looking at that a bit differently. It's just my opinion. But, you know, the last couple of days and putting this video together, I mean, yeah, it took longer than usual because it's a lot to take in. And there were some other discoveries that I am not comfortable sharing right now with everyone. But it does get worse. And yeah, I don't want to be the one who is breaking that news. That's all I have to say. But what do you guys think? Definitely leave your thoughts below. As always, I will be back with more content. But until then, please be safe, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.
Such a fraud.